Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and today's episode is Anime Talks. And this is gonna be the final anime talk for the year. And we're gonna actually end it off with something that we actually haven't done before. I think this is the very first time doing this particular type of, I guess, anime, which is we're talking about a movie. We haven't talked about a movie for anime, right? As far as I remember.
No, just series.
Yeah, either one season or two, or more. Um, but this is our first time talking about the movie, and the movie in question is actually something that we actually recently talked about. In I think specifically two anime episodes ago, which was Yuru Camp, and it's Yuru Camp the movie that came out in 2022, and it actually took us a while to get to watching around that movie. We only had watched it maybe around a month ago, I think, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and it was quite a bit after we had watched the Yuru Camp anime, both seasons and the miniseries, and so it was quite a while afterwards because we've been meaning to watch it, but we just kept on getting stalled on it, and we finally had time to sit down and watch it, and we did. Sorry, a little bit gassy here because I just ate, but we kind of went in without knowing anything. That movie was 2 hours long. Do you remember that?
I thought it was longer.
It's around 2 hours and some odd minutes, but it's 2 hours.
Huh. Alright.
Yeah. And we kind of went in with no idea what we were gonna get into because I never watched it before. This was a completely first watch through. Same for you, and yeah, it was just basically a first movie experience. And so going into it, I was actually kind of thrown off at first because it kind of like at the very beginning it talks about it shows like them normally camping, right? But this was during the summer, and keep in mind the entire first two seasons, or the two seasons that are out currently, are all camping in the winter, right? They were all done in winter, and we hadn't even gotten to spring, and suddenly it's just summer in that movie. And so that was the first weird part. And the second weird part was that segment that lasted like maybe 5 minutes just suddenly turned into what's it called? Turned into like a time skip, right? They're suddenly adults. They're actually working adults. uh, so that threw me like out into for a loop, I guess. What about you? Did that kind of throw you off when you first started realizing that they were actual adults, not like the high schoolers that they were initially from the anime series?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what to expect from the movie, but I was not expecting that big of a time skip because they were, in high school
Mm-hmm.
in the series, and then all of a sudden they're, past college, working and full-grown adults. So that was I was a little confused at first because I forget the main girl, the blue hair.
Oh, Rin?
Rin. Yeah, they showed her first, and I was like, "Oh, it's Rin." And then she's like in a nicer formal outfit, and I'm like, "Oh." And yeah, sudden she was just at an office job. I was like, "Oh, okay." They're probably like 5, 6 years older now.
And I guess another thing that was really interesting or that threw me off too, was the place she lived at was no longer at the home that we were familiar with. She was living in an apartment.
Yeah, that's right. She was living in an apartment on her own.
Yeah, and I was like, this isn't the home that we're used to, and and it's kind of weird because we're not in the anime, it's not our home, but it just felt so weird seeing her out of that element, because in the anime, her home is like in the mountain, right? It's directly next to the roadside of a mountain path. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And like suddenly she's in a nice apartment, or quote unquote nice apartment. It's like a single room apartment, and it's just like, what in the world? Like, what is this? It was like a good 20 minutes until I had realized like this isn't like this isn't being portrayed as like a short segment of a dream. This isn't like showing them as actually as if they are living in that current time. And to be quite honest, almost the entire way, I was having that kind of expectation. Like at the very end, they'd be like, "And it was just a dream," you know?
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah, I was so confused, but it wasn't. Like in the end, it actually wasn't. So this was clearly like meant to be set as them as adults, right? And I think what happened was this was because this was made in 2022, right? They had just announced the anime like I think 3 months, maybe 2 months ago, or 1 month ago, prior to this recording, right? And so I don't think they even knew when they released a movie that there was going to be a season 3, right? Because we had mentioned in our Yuru Camp talk episode that the season 3 animation studio is completely different, and so it looks very different from the first 2 seasons. And so I think they just couldn't get a contract renewal with that animation studio, so that's why they were unsure as to whether or not they were going to make another season. And so that's why the movie came out the way it did, which was like them being set as adults, because I think they had the expectation that they were never going to release a new season.
Sounds about right. I want to throw something in there.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, since first 2 seasons they're in, high school. We don't know what season 3 is about yet.
Yeah.
But let's say it doesn't get to the point where they're at in the movie where they're adults.
Uh-huh.
Would they keep making more seasons, like, till they get to that point, and then do more seasons, after the movie, quote unquote, so they're like into the adulthood part?
So
Or they just keep doing seasons, even past the movie, but completely like cutting out the movie part?
So that's a good question, because there's basically, I guess, 3 ways that animes are made, right? There's the animation, which is like original animation, right? Completely on its own. Storyboard is made from scratch and they make it, right? So they're the ones that determine how far and how long it goes. There's a second one, which is it's based off of a novel. There's a lot of animes are actually created by novels, right? And the third method, I guess, which is by far the most common method and most popular method, is it's based off of manga work, right? The comics or, drawn release by the artist or original artist or whatever. And so in this case, Yuru Camp actually is not an original thing. It's originally a manga. And I never read the manga. However, I do know that based on your question, right, are they going to keep on making more seasons until they reach that point? Long answer or short answer, no, they're not. Long answer, maybe. And the reason why it's that way is because 99% chance, because they weren't even sure that the season 3 was going to come out, there's not going to be a season 4. Primarily because a lot of the times when they try contracting, like say, hey, do you want to make this anime, right? There's a budget. And a lot of the times, a lot of animes are under budget. And so they don't take on a lot of projects. And so in this case, I could definitely see Yuru Camp not being taken on for even more seasons, because as much as we enjoyed Yuru Camp, right? As much as we enjoyed the anime and we think it's a pretty, fun anime to watch or relaxing anime to watch, chances are it doesn't appeal a lot to the actual core audience in Japan, right? Where it has to compete against multiple other animes on the primetime TV time slots and everything, whether it's through streaming services or anything like that. And so it's probably a mix of things where they probably feel like there's probably not. I'm definitely going to think that, especially in season 3, when the animation art style is completely different, and it's completely different to the point where it's almost jarring, right, compared to the predecessor, that they're probably not going to be able to even renew for the next season, right? So I feel like season 3 is actually going to be the very last season that Yuru Camp is. Like, I'm pretty much being doom and gloom about this, right? But I feel like that's the realistic expectation, is that, like, a lot of times when animes are being made, they don't know how many seasons they're going to go. They don't even know if they're going to even be able to reach a certain point in the anime. They kind of just go and do it, right? I mean, for sure, they're going to go in with the expectation that, like, there's only going to be one season, right? Season 2 is a surprise. Season 3 is definitely more of a surprise. And so, Yeah, like I don't think I think in the season 3 they're definitely not going to get even close to the where the movie's at. Um, because I think theoretically all the students there, like all the four main students, right? They're all first years in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only do they have to go through 3 years total in high school, they have to go through another 4 years of college. And then reach to the point where they're an adult. That's a lot of things that can be covered through. Obviously, it could be different for the manga. The manga could have completely skipped college or something like that, or even skipped a majority of high school, right? And immediately went to the adulthood. I don't know what it's like, and I don't think it even got to that point, or it did that. I wouldn't know. But yeah, to answer your question, in my opinion, I don't think they're gonna make any more seasons to even reach to that movie point because it's just so much of a time difference and the uncertainty behind, in general, making new seasons for anime.
All right. I kind of, yeah, once you start explaining it, I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Funding. Money.
we as humans tend to forget that a lot of media that we consume has a lot of money being put into it, right? We kind of take it for granted. And yeah, like that's why like sometimes even if an anime is really good, right? You don't see a season 2 because funding issues. Like remember Grand Blue, the comedic anime?
Yep. Oh,
Never,
I remember that.
yeah, never got a season 2 probably because of funding. No one wants to pick up that anime. It's probably not worth the amount of time they put in, right? It's kind of different for us for World Trigger, right? World Trigger is kind of a different story because they caught up to a major part of the story and then they can't really continue because it would catch up to the current manga at where it's at. So it's not necessarily a funding issue. It's more like they caught the pacing issue, right? That's why there's no season 4 for World Trigger yet. I would assume that's why. And I think World Trigger definitely it doesn't have quote unquote the funding issues. I mean, it probably does, but like they're not afraid of the funding issues because, in my opinion, when World Trigger season 1 and 2 and 3 came out, it definitely wasn't mainstream at all, right? Compared to like the big players, right? It's definitely a lesser known anime with a definitely smaller fan base, but dedicated fan base, I would say. But that dedicated fan base is not enough to make up for the cost that it probably went to making that anime,
Yeah.
but they still went ahead and did it. And it's not like the quality faltered. In fact, it got better. You remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if the quality only got better, then I would assume they do want to make a season 4. It's just they don't have enough materials to work with to create it into the story. And they're not gonna make their own. The anime is not gonna divert.
I mean, they kind of did.
Well,
already.
for season 1, yeah, they did. But season 1 is kind of an anomaly in itself because that thing was like 70-something episodes.
That is a very long season.
Yeah. So yeah, but in this case, Yuru Camp, it's definitely more of a funding thing than material working off with like type thing or timeline constraints or anything like that. But yeah. So that's like something interesting to think about, I guess, in terms of when it comes to anime. But this was a whole tangent. But going back to the anime itself, so what I thought was interesting about the anime was that they pretty much showcased a lot of like almost like real life struggles with meeting up with people, with meeting up with your friends that you were really good friends with in high school, right? And when you're suddenly, as an adult, having responsibilities and entering the workforce, and we talked about this before, meeting up with people is hard.
It takes months of planning.
Yeah.
Like, at least.
Yeah, especially as numbers grow, the longer you have to plan. And even if you plan as much as you do, a wrench could easily be thrown in because one individual has, like, some other life stuff that comes out, right? Emergency, that happens, or some other circumstances happen, and then suddenly you have to come to make the decision as a group, like, do we want to continue meeting up or do you want to like reschedule to try and match up so everyone gets there? And it's a whole nother like process of rescheduling, trying to figure out everyone's schedule again, right?
Oh yeah, I've gone through that many times.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm currently going through it right now too, and it's frustrating because like eventually people just stop. You know, they just give up. You know, they eventually come to the, like, I guess not necessarily realization, but more like mindset that like this meetup is never gonna happen. It's almost impossible to get like 5, 6 people together on one day during a certain time frame, and they just stop planning. And so the anime doesn't go to that extent, but they do showcase like as an adult you live. Also, I think what was pretty, I guess, crucial in a sense is that they all lived, almost all of them lived in different cities. 2 of them lived in proximity. The other 2 were kind of far away, right?
Yeah.
And so it's shown very really because, you remember Rin met up with that glasses girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's only because she was within proximity, and then she kind of almost never met the other 2 friends other than, the project that we'll eventually talk about when they work on it. Outside of that, they didn't really meet.
Yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah,
now that I think about it.
They only really met during the project. I mean, there was like 1 or 2 instances, but like outside of that, like, and this was like over the course of a couple months too, during that time frame of what the anime was showing. And so, it was really interesting to see that, because that's how reality is, right? Even if you are working on something big, even then it's kind of hard to meet up because they're all doing their own thing.
Yep. Life happens. Life keeps going.
Yeah. So yeah, so I guess, what was your thoughts when you saw them, being responsible adults, working as, the way they were, and then like kind of like what their life paths led them to?
It was interesting to me because, we watched the first 2 seasons and they're in high school. And so you're like, oh, they're kids. They got plenty of time, Time, what are the things? It's time, money, and energy or something. So they have a lot of energy and time, but no money. And then, once you get older, you have money, but no time or energy. Or you have 2 of the 3. You get to choose. You can't have all 3, basically. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's so real. Like,
Yeah.
we're going through that right now. Like, we don't have time. We have money, some money now. And sometimes we have energy, like if we're lucky.
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool that I don't know if they purposely did that, but I thought it was cool that they brought in some realistic stuff, like you said, the struggles of daily life.
Mm-hmm.
But like, for their paths, I don't even know their names. The pink hair girl.
Nadeshiko?
Yeah. I kind of figured she'd end up, still doing stuff with like outdoors.
Yeah, that was like yeah, she finally made her dream,
Yeah, that was kind of obvious. But what was her name? Rin?
Yeah, the blue-haired.
I was not thinking she wasn't an editor, was she? She was like
she was originally marketing, and then she moved into editorial, making like kind of like what's it called? I don't want to call them news segments, but like where you put like she like makes her own articles.
Okay, yeah. See, I didn't. Well, actually, at the time I thought it was weird, but now that I think about it, she was always, in the library when she, had work, quote unquote.
But
I was like, that kind of made a little more sense now, but
yeah, but like you kind of like didn't expect her because she was the one, she's the one who was originally into camping,
yeah, she was like the first character introduced that was like really into camping. So then when she became like an editor in the end, I was like, oh, that's a little different. Not expecting that path.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the black hair girl with the dog?
Chiaki? Oh,
yeah,
the black hair with the girls. There's 2 black-haired girls. Chiaki's the one with the glasses. But the what's it called? The one who has the dog is called Enna.
And okay, her working at like a groomer, that made total sense.
Yeah, that one was like that one wasn't like too surprising.
Yeah, it wasn't too surprising, but when you saw it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I guess I'll go to the glasses girl next.
Chiaki, yeah.
I kind of forget what her job was.
I think, if I'm correct, God, um, she worked as like some kind of advertiser. I think she worked at an advertising agency. That's what she did. Yeah, she
See,
worked at an advertising agency.
yeah, I didn't see her going down that path at all, except the path where she got into drinking. I kind of figured that would happen.
Yeah, that would make sense. Like when she's drinking, but like her going into I guess advertisement, I guess, was not necessarily unexpected, but also kind of like, huh.
Yeah, I didn't expect it at least.
Yeah.
I kind of didn't know what to expect from her, to be honest.
Yeah, she was kind of more because the thing is like she's kind of like that whimsical person, I guess.
Yeah, plus she was like the club leader, I guess,
Yeah.
in high school, so I thought maybe she'd go down a more like club leader role or like something
Ooh,
down the
leadership
line.
role.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess she kind of did with her eventual path, which is she worked at the tourism promotion organization. She wasn't a leader necessarily, but she had to kind of be a leader again on the movie setting,
I guess. Yeah. And then what? Blondie.
Aoi. Fuck. I I said it wrong. Well, it's Aoi. Aoi. Inuyama.
Yeah, her. I didn't know she would be a teacher.
Yeah, I didn't. For some reason I was surprised she was a teacher too. I'm like, huh. But I guess it kind of makes sense in retrospect because she have her little sister.
Well, I mean, just because you have a sister doesn't mean you're going into teaching, but
True.
her personality, I guess, I did not get teacher out of it.
Yeah, she
From
definitely.
from the series, at least.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
What did you think about each character's path?
Nadeshiko was the one that was like, I was happy about, because she always, was showing that pure enthusiasm I really loved, right? And the fact that she went into that direction of working at that store made me happy. Chiaki was like, funny, right? Kind of like, I quit. I went to a new job or something like that.
Yeah.
Rin was surprising. It's like, oh, I didn't expect you to be in like a formal office job setting. At first. Aoi threw me off a lot being a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And Anna, as we discussed, was like not surprising at all because of her dog.
Yeah.
But
animals.
yeah. I think overall though, outside of Aoi, like all of them make sense, It's like, yeah, I definitely see why like after reflecting, it's like, oh yeah, I definitely see why they're there. But at the same time, like it's kind of like that saying, like you don't know what job you're actually gonna end up doing, right, for the long term, right? Chiaki is kind of like the example. You go into one direction, but you're like, I don't want to be here anymore, so you change, right? Nadeshiko's like you chase your passion and you finally get your passion at your job. Rin is more like, I guess in the exemplary, you end up in a job that you are technically proficient at, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're better skilled at, which makes more sense because she's always reading books, I guess. I would assume that correlates, right?
Right.
Enna is more like, I feel like she kind of also ended up with that job because she's very known. She was very portrayed to be very lazy, I guess.
Lazy?
Yeah, because remember she doesn't want to move a lot. She wants to constantly sleep in.
I guess, but I don't know. Being a groomer, like a pet groomer, like
Yeah. So
I feel like it's a kind of level opposite of.
No. So what I was gonna say is like because she was kind of lazy, she never really pursued a certain career, and so she kind of ended up being a pet groomer because she took care of her dog, right? So that skill kind of naturally translated into a pet groomer, if that makes sense. Like it seemed for me, it seemed like she didn't necessarily plan ahead, right? She's kind of like the person that kind of just ends up where they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand that.
And then Aoi again was the one that's like, I guess it's exemplary for us, right? As a outsider perspective, she ends up in a place where you initially never thought she would end up.
Yeah, that's my path right now.
I guess same for me too, right? Uh,
Well, I mean, yours is a little more. It makes sense than mine,
I guess.
because you kind of went into that
Yeah, I
fucking
guess.
businessy area. I went into psychology and I ended up in fucking accounting. That's
So I
like
guess
taking a
yeah,
hard.
you're more equivalent to Aoi, and I'm more equivalent to Enna. You know, I kind of just ended up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was, I think it's like real life examples, and I thought that was really cool in a sense, right? It's realistic in that sense.
Yeah.
And so, as for the plot point, gosh, honestly, it felt kind of weird just seeing as the movie progressed, because they were really excited to kind of revitalize an area, and the area they revitalized, actually, like in terms of like the way it looked, was actually really nice. It looked nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of like tucked away in the mountain, but not too far, I would assume. And as they were working on it, I remember you were just like, "Oh my god, they're gonna take forever to like do this, especially when they're doing it by themselves."
By hand.
Mm-hmm.
No machinery
They,
at first.
at first, they ended up getting machinery because they had to.
Basically, think of it as cutting a lawn, but with scissors.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It takes a long time. Or brushing, or like cleaning a floor with a toothbrush. It's gonna take you forever.
Yeah. But they ended up doing it. They persevered, because their passion pushed them, right? And it was actually kind of nice, to see them doing something different. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, let's try camping here. It's more like, let's try setting up a place for people to come in and enjoy to camp,
Mm-hmm.
So I found that very interesting, and
I also
overall,
just thought of something, if I can throw something in.
uh-huh,
So we were talking about how it takes a lot of time to, landscape all that, right?
uh-huh,
They all had jobs.
yeah.
Where did they get the time?
So
Did they just be like, hey, yo, I'm gonna take off for a couple days?
okay, so interestingly enough, it shows. It doesn't like directly show, right? Or not necessarily directly, but it's not like gone over as much in terms of scheduling and planning, right? They basically, in parts of the movie, right, they show like a calendar, and then whose turn is it, right? They go in pairs essentially, right? So they don't all work every weekend. They don't get every weekend together and work on it, right? It's like two people work on this weekend, other two people work on this weekend, maybe all of them work on this weekend, or like there's three of them working on that weekend. And so it was basically planned out, and it's shown bits and pieces throughout the movie. It's not necessarily focused on, but it shows that they were scheduling it out. And so, what's it called? They just did it on their weekends.
Even still, like, I feel like it'd take a lot more time if it's just, two people at a time on a weekend.
Yeah, and it did definitely. It took them a couple months.
I feel like landscaping a whole area, making it, cleaning up,
Yeah, that
removal of stuff, utilities and all that stuff. I feel like it'd take more than a couple months.
that part was kind of unrealistic. I think overall it was like I want to say 7 months, if I remember correctly, 7 to 8 months.
I don't remember how long exactly, but that stuff takes a lot of time. That's
Yeah, and realistically, it would take like a year minimum.
I guess if you have special connections, it could make the process quicker, huh?
Yeah. They only had like a couple people help out, though, if I remember correctly. But they ended up getting some machinery, too, so I guess that might have sped up the process.
True.
Yeah, because I remember, I think they got a grass cutter.
Yeah, but that's just to cut the grass.
They didn't do much actual landscaping outside of one part, I think, if I remember, because Nanashiko got the excavator.
Was it?
It was an excavator or one of those, what's it called? Not tractors. What was it called? It's one of those things where it has like that little shovel thing in the front. Oh, it was an excavator. Yeah, they got an excavator and mower.
Huh. I don't remember the excavator part.
Yeah, remember Nadeshiko came in with like an excavator and they were like, "What the heck?" And she's like, "I got a license."
I thought that was the lawnmower thingy, like an industrial sized lawnmower
Oh
or
no,
something.
no, no! The lawnmower was like a typical lawnmower, if I remember correctly. They actually brought an actual excavator.
And where'd she get a license from?
That's remember I remember commenting. I'm like, where did she get this license from?
You don't just get one overnight.
But she ended up getting it. So you know, I guess.
I mean, it is an anime, I guess. I'll give them that, but that was a little strange. Just like
Here, I'm gonna send you.
cutting.
I'm gonna send you the image of her in the excavator.
Yeah, okay, I remember that now. But it's just like cutting grass by hand. All of a sudden, she next day, she's like, "Yeah, I got it. This giant ass excavator." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, in the anime, it was the following week after they decided they needed to speed up the process. But even then, 1 week is like, how the heck did you do that so fast?
Yeah.
Uh, but I
OSHA
mean,
would be
uh-huh.
I was gonna say OSHA. I don't know about that.
I don't know. Maybe Nadeshiko has been like doing a lot of stuff on her own, you know, as she grew up. Cause she does seem to be like almost like the type to like kind of do everything.
Yeah, I guess if that did happen, like she had a license or something, but it was never shown because she's just shown working at, that outdoor store.
Yeah.
So it's like, what? I like how the picture you sent here. I can't tell if the other two are like shocked or like happy.
I think they're
Like,
like whoa, you know.
yeah, like their body language has a couple different things I could think of. So
Yeah. Um, what's it called? But yeah, I think. Oh, also another thing. I remember we commented when in Nadeshiko, right, where she lived right next to a river, and we're like, damn, she either really rich or she just got a really good deal,
yeah, that's right, because her balcony overlooked the river.
and she could see, you know, Tokyo or not Tokyo, the what's it called, Mount Fuji, in the
Yep,
distance. But I would assume it was actually a lot cheaper because it was probably far away from the actual town.
probably, yeah. It's usually how it is.
So I wouldn't be surprised. Uh, but yeah, I mean, overall, oh, and I also find it really heartwarming that like Nadeshiko was helping out those the high schoolers that were looking around at camping equipment, and then you know it was kind of like the same situation when she was looking at camping equipment back then.
I think that's, yeah, because didn't they touch on it? Like they kind of went back, she kind of thought back, like, oh, hey, I was in this kind of same situation. I can help him out.
Yeah. Um, so I thought that was really heartwarming. And then I guess going back to or going like you know towards the whole storyline for the you know anime, we're not gonna spoil too much. I suggest you go watch the movie too. Um, the ending was kind of almost rushed in my opinion.
The movie?
Yeah. Of course, like a lot of like, cause like it was last minute, like you know the last minute panic happened,
Yeah, I can see that.
and it felt kind
But
of jumbled.
was it that? Yeah, and I don't think they wanted to make the movie like too long
Yeah.
because
It was
movies are technically what, like 90 minutes.
Yeah, and it was already encroaching the 120-minute mark by that time, so it took a while.
I feel like they could have skipped a little bit of the random, like too much detail kind of things.
Yeah, maybe. Uh, but yeah, overall though, I think the movie was nice.
Oh, I enjoyed the movie. Yeah,
It
I'd
was.
watch it again.
Mhm. I definitely would. It's the kind of like that mood where you want to like watch it during like a colder season, I guess.
I guess, even though it's in summer, but
Yeah. But yeah, like it was a really nice movie because it touched upon like real, like you know, real, I guess, situations that happen in life. In terms of like the social aspect, not necessarily like, you know, going out and making a camping site ground. I don't think I don't think between us, I don't think we have the energy to do that in the first place.
yeah, or even like just doing a startup kind of thing like that.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, like. Yeah, I really like it. I would recommend the anime. Highly recommend it. What would you give it out of a 10 for your, I guess, kind of like your first anime movie experience?
I'd say at least like an 8 to a 9. It was pretty. Well, it's because mainly because we watched the series, so I knew like
Mm-hmm.
kind of what was going on most of the time.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped. But if you just watch the anime, you're like, what the hell?
Uh-huh.
Like I don't think you'd understand like the characters and stuff
Yeah.
as much. But since we watched it, it definitely made it a lot more of an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I think I give it around a 9 too. So yeah, honestly, like, movie's great and there's not much to talk about. I want to say I do want to talk about a lot more things, but that's like I think that would be a separate episode. And despite the side, tangent that we went off with during the, I guess, middle, I do want to focus on this anime and this movie. So yeah, again, I guess to reiterate, I hope that season 3 is actually better than we think, or I think rather, despite our initial impressions of it. And I hope to see more of Yuru Camp because I do enjoy like kind of like that vibe it gives.
Yeah, it's not action packed like your action anime, so it's more laid back.
I knew exactly what was gonna come.
I was trying to think of a different word, but I'm like, you know what? That's the perfect word. It makes sense. So like, it's more laid back, quote unquote, haha. But it's a slower pace. How about that?
Yeah.
And sometimes watching slower paced stuff's, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't all have to be, moving super fast like other action animes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, do whoever gets to this point when listening to this I guess episode, give it a watch. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So I'll end the episode here. So I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and this is the Casuals, and we will see you next week. Bye bye. Oh, and I guess one more thing. Merry Christmas, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, Christmas is in a couple days.
Yeah. So Merry
Happy-
Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah. If I forget something, happy that too.
Happy everything. Hopefully we get it included.
Happy Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa. I forgot
Kwanzaa, right, Kwanzaa. And we'll see you, I guess, next week when we do the New Year's episode, I guess, right? And our final episode of the year.
Right. It's already, but the year's over.
Yeah. Bye-bye.